I think that's one of the biggest problems with the current media sphere, is that so much of it is reductive and reduced to these little sound bites. I mean, just this sort of antiquated practice of political debate is something I'm so excited for us to evolve past, because it doesn't, like, I'm not going to vote for a leader because he can cling to one side and render himself right. To me, leadership is listening, hearing what all the interests are and seeing how well my leader can collaborate and meet and converse in a diplomatic way. So debate itself, just given that that's what's inspiring this particular piece that we're talking about, is itself reductive and old school and, steeped in a sort of like polarized win-lose, egoic, who can be right, that I think is part of the problem that we're still living out.
Okay. And it's funny you talk about, the reductive nature of news. I think it's only going to get worse, because I think the way the internet works, maybe Twitter was a contribute to this phenomenon a lot, when it reduced language down to 140 characters. I think it's 280 now, if I'm not mistaken. But when we got to that point where you had to get out of maybe a very nuanced thought in 140 characters, it forced people to boil it down. I personally believe that we're going to see more of this, as we've seen with the recent Supreme Court hearings. I think the whole approach, and I spoke about this on Hotep Jesus, my guest spot on his show, that I think that whole song and dance that happened was to create memes. And one of the memes that came out of that was she couldn't define a woman. I mean, that's those 3 days. I mean, it was other one talking about the whole pedo thing. Easy YouTube. I'm just easy. But and that's like, we have to do this because we know the eye is watching, Big Brother is watching, but we still gonna have this conversation. But I think that was the point of it, to boil it down to 2 or 3 main points. One, she was friendly on maps, and then she couldn't define a woman. And I think that was the whole point of the question and answer process. Did you have any point on that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And even back in the day, because I come from a hard news background. So even back in the day, news was still whittled down to sound bites and like gotchas. And it has gotten, I would say, probably, I'm guessing, 1 million times worse. And I think you're right. We're only going downhill because people's attention spans have been chipped away. I read a citation a couple years ago, so it's probably gotten even worse, that the average human attention span is now shorter than that of a goldfish, which is 7.
And that's a meme in itself. You see, like, it's continue, but I'm just saying that's where we got. This is where we've arrived.
Yeah, I mean, the extent of the social engineering that has been deployed on the human species and where we're at now, it's really startling, because, I see it with my students. They're not used to reading long passages. They do have shorter attention spans, adults as well. So as far as having the bandwidth, the ability, the focus, and the willingness to really dive in to an issue, a bill, a policy, a circumstance in the world, and learn about both sides and dive deeper into the history, very few people are willing to do that. It's all about like sound bites and gotchas, and it's not really an effective means of up-leveling our country and our species. Like, it's not working for us. It's working for the social engineers who don't have our best interests in mind. And that's really my aim in terms of like my propaganda book, and what I'm teaching is helping people understand that the people shaping our minds and shaping our discourse don't have our best interests in mind. So it's really on us to take the reins and steer us in a different direction.